Hello and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns podcast for July 16th, 2024. My name is Tom Luongo, and we have a lot to talk about. It is episode 184. And, we've had some very dramatic events over the last couple of days. I have not had a chance to do a podcast. I've been so freaking busy just trying to chase down everything that's going on and all the rest of it that I haven't even really had a chance to prep for what was supposed to be an interview about something completely different. But I have today, on the recommendation of Tom Bodrovics over at Palisades Gold Radio, a man by the name of David Bradshaw, who I haven't met before. David and I chatted about 2 minutes beforehand, and we both looked like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to talk about the same things I've been talking about every day. So David is the author of a book about what a ripoff the higher educational system is, and he was recommended to me by Tom, and I was like, dude, I love talking to new people. So David, thank you for showing up and doing the thing. And how are you?
I'm great, man. Really appreciate you having me on. Big fan. Listen to a lot of the stuff that you put out. And yeah, put a new book out. Self-published it through Amazon. It's called No Second Chances, and it's a family guide to the college decision. And, a lot of people get into these. They don't realize what this is in terms of a financial decision until way down the road. Right. And of course, the system sets them up to go take out tons of money. Here, we've got aid for you. I mean, debt. Last time someone told you that debt was aid, you might have shot them. It's still a ridiculous concept, but that's the way they phrase it. And that's the way they tell everyone when they come on campus. And, for your audience, this isn't going to be news to them. They're smart people. This is common sense stuff about questions. But my approach to this kind of changed as this became a different project. Right. And at some point, I got to the point where I go, this isn't for kids because they're not dumb, right? They're ignorant. They don't know what they don't know. They're under 25 with undeveloped brains. They've been told their entire lives by this system that, you have to go to college or you're a failure. Their parents believe that too. And so for your audience, this is a gift to their friends and family where you have a hard time talking about this conversation. And every time, you got to get involved in somebody else's financial business when you're trying to help them out, especially when it's friends and family, it's awkward conversations. And it's like they dig their heels in even further just because they've been indoctrinated and they don't know they've been indoctrinated. And I think for your audience, that's like the perfect sentiment setup for what it is.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, I'll be honest, when Tom recommended me to you, or recommended you to me, Jesus Christ, it was funny. I'm like, oh no, that sounds perfect. But literally, my daughter just graduated high school a month ago. Okay.
Yeah. So you're dealing with this. Perfect. Let's have a conversation about that personal situation.
Okay. So it's really interesting. And my wife and I have never really pushed her, saying, we've always been saying to her, you don't have to go to college. You can self-start. You can do all these things. We'll be happy to help you if you want to, do an apprenticeship. I don't care what you want to do. I'm like, I've told her flat out, I'm like, hon, you want to be an artist or you want to be a graphic designer or whatever. Like there's all sorts of experts on YouTube that I would gladly pay for a master course with some guy, with somebody if you vet them and you do the work, right? But it's funny, what she did, and I'll be honest with you. And you mentioned Florida. What was interesting about what my daughter did was that she took on for her final year in high school, not because she's dead set on going to college or anything else. I think she just set herself the goal of getting as much of a Bright Future Scholarship, which is what we have here in Florida, where you can get, the state to pay your tuition as possible. And she went ahead and did like this massive amount of work in her senior year, taking pre-calc, which she hates, taking Spanish, which she hated, in order to qualify for that, to get the scholarship, which to her was just this massive accomplishment. It was this thing that she had set herself, a task that she had set herself so that she would have the option of being able to take classes without having to take on a huge financial burden. And then she kind of figures out what she wants to do because she hasn't, some of what my wife and I have talked to her about has sunk in. Right. But she smartly wants to hedge her bets. And if she does want to go to school, well, she doesn't want to pay a whole lot of money for it.
So that's the key, right? Not paying a lot of money for it. And whatever number she got, Tom, in terms of what that tuition number is, in terms of what you would have to earn to pay taxes, right? And then pay that money, that's all worth double. So whatever number she got, you could just multiply it times 2 and be like, yo, that's worth double in terms of that value. And then she still has the next piece, right? Which is room and board piece, right?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Like you say that, because she wound up she didn't qualify for the whole thing. She didn't quite get the SAT scores, the full ride, but she did get a 75% scholarship to any state school in the country, which is, to her credit. She worked her ass off. And I had to help her, and I had to hire a tutor to help her get through pre-cal, because I literally didn't have the time to work through all this stuff with her. And I had no problem with that, but she wanted to do this. And I was just, as her dad, knowing full well that her taking on any kind of responsibility and big project like that was a big deal for her emotionally. Like, this was a big deal for her. This is a girl who's got, who just has, and she has self-starting issues and whatnot. So her doing that, I didn't care if she used, she's the one who wants to use the scholarship. I don't care if you use it or not. I just wanted to see you achieve that, because I knew it was an important task for you to complete.
Right. And those are the learning experiences.
And I wanted her to feel that sense of accomplishment, that she set herself a goal, she set herself a task, and she hit the target. And so that I could stand there and look at her and go, I am so fucking proud of you.
Right. And you went through the thing, right? And this is what college used to be for everybody, right? When I went to college was most about, like, you graduate, you've proved to an employer that you can show up for 4 years.
Yes.
Right. Like, no one thinks that when you get done with school that all of a sudden you know shit, because you don't. Right. So I graduated with an MBA, 2 undergrads, had an accounting and a management degree, because I started the management one. I'd quit the accounting one because I was bored. And then I realized what those intro management jobs were, and I did not want to go work at Enterprise or JCPenney. And I was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm going to go get the accounting degree and finish that. And even though I went to a shit state school, right, I got to go take that CPA exam. And doesn't matter where you went to school. That's the same for everybody. So I was like, oh, we get a free bar here. Like, everyone's on the same playing field. So you go past that thing the first time, all 4 sections, when that thing was 2 days and a pain in the ass. And it doesn't matter where you went to school, right? Like, you write your own ticket, but still the first tax project, someone lands on my desk. All right, hand it back in. Partner comes back and goes, where are your work papers? And I go, yeah, I'll get those to you. Sorry about that. My oversight, right? Partner walks away. I look at the coworker sitting next to me and I go, what the fuck are work papers? Like, literally, like, which is all they're looking for, is like, trace your work, right? Show me your work, right? It's literally the real true answer is show me your work. But I didn't know how to show my work.
I just know how to do it. I just knew how to do the work.
Right. I knew how to do some of it. I knew the answer you were looking for at the end, but I didn't know the process and procedures in between. I didn't know how to really do the job. I knew some of the stuff, and I knew how to, some of the words, but like, your real education begins when you get done with college.
Oh yeah.
And so this idea that you're going to go pay this massive amount of money, and you happen to live in Florida. I looked up Florida. Florida is the lowest cost tuition in the country, realistically.
I left New York to go to school in Florida, and it was cheaper.
Even paying out of state tuition is still cheaper.
1986, right? I graduated high school at 18 years old, and I didn't really take college very seriously. Now, dude, I went to one of the best public high schools in the state of New York. We put 7 folks from a public high school in the Hudson Valley in Ivy League schools on merit alone. My best friend in the valedictorian went to fucking Caltech. Okay. And I just kind of skated through, graduated in the high 40s. And I was like, my parents had property in Florida. I'll go to University of Florida. What the hell? I don't care. And I could have easily gone to an Ivy League school if I wanted to. I could have got Princeton or whatever. I didn't want to go. One, I didn't want to put my parents through that because I knew they couldn't afford it. And 2, I was like, that's not what this is about. What this was be about for me was I get a chance to leave the house and go finally be on my own and start to be and to live my own life. So I left, went to Florida, and I looked at it and I went, I was paying for the first couple of years because I didn't have state residency. I hadn't transferred my state residency over. I was paying $125 a credit. Well, guess what? Orange County fucking Community College, what we would call OC, and you never said OC without some form of derision in your voice. Like, what the fuck do you want to do? You want to go to fucking OC, right? It was $135 a credit in New York for state tuition for Orange County residents. It was $135. I'm like, it's cheaper for me to go to the University of freaking Florida than it was for me to go to a New York community college. And that I know that is still in place here in Florida today.
It is. And that's exception to the rule. I mean, in
Mhm.
Colorado where I'm at, you're looking at room and board and tuition of 120 grand to go to college for 4 years. It's 30 grand a year. Like the room, and it's basically split 50-50 between room and board and tuition. That's
Yeah.
a ton of money. I mean, just
Insane amount of money.
take that number, Tom. 120 grand. Okay, for most families, that's the second most expensive thing they're ever going to pay for.
I know.
Besides house.
I know.
So you go house, college, and then exactly what you just said. And I feel like it was the same way for me. I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to go have that experience. And so all of the current parents have that as their perspective of like college is this coming of age experience where we go get out of the house. We got to go live the thing, do the thing, be on our own, right? Have the growing up experience, right?
Mhm.
But it didn't cost us 120 grand to go do that.
No.
Right. So this is the delta today that everyone's got to recognize is like, this is not your grandpa's college. This is not your father's college. And this is not that experience. Right. And then you got the second part, which I'm sure we'll get to later, of like what it is now. But just the cost alone, just look at the number. And that's part of what I try to do here is just take families through it. And I don't have answers, right? Because I don't know what you want to do. I don't know what your ambition is. But I can tell you where it started from. This started from a family friend who she wanted to go be a veterinarian.
Mhm.
And when a young woman comes and goes, hey, I've worked with animals at this veterinarian clinic the last 2 years. I want to be a veterinarian. What does that do to your heart? You're like, oh, that's
Sure.
fucking great.
Right.
Like that is a great thing. That is a perfect kind of hero's journey to go take on. Right. And then I just happened to be reading articles about private equity buying up all of them. And then you can go read their own literature in the veterinarian articles, and they're like, oh yeah, veterinarians are saddled with 180 grand debt on each. They make like 100 grand a year on average.
Yep.
It's like they're trapped into a life that most of them would no longer recommend.
Yes.
So you go, well, this is insane.
And then you wonder, and then you when you go to the vet, why vet bills are so friggin' expensive. You wonder why. I used to run a goat farm, right? I used to run goats out here in my place up here in North Florida, and I don't anymore. And we watched over the course of the 12 years that we raised goats, we watched the veterinary industry cut off our access to buying medications, standard everyday medications that you would use, like basic like sulfa drugs and ivermectin and all sorts of things. Not ivermectin per se, but like sulfa drugs and some other stuff that we used to be able to like buy them and antibiotics and everything. I used to be able to go down to Alachua Farm and Lumber and get everything I needed to run my farm out of the cooler right next to the checkout counter at Alachua Farm and Lumber. I could order all of my worming medications and everything else for the most part online. And then I watched them slowly but surely lobby the federal government to make all those things scheduled so that they had to go to a vet to get them. I'm like, we're raising fucking goats out here. You can't even get a vet to come out and look at a freaking goat because everybody's like, dude, like, we don't work on goats because there's no money in them. So you had to be your own veterinarian. So now we're trapped in a rock and a hard place. And every time like somebody got sick, I had to go to a vet to spend $100 on shit on a medication I used to dose for coccidia, which I have to do on a regular basis. When I used to be able to pay $8 for it. So,
right.
Before this stuff when it went into effect, I was running around. Camille and I would run around like trying to find the last, like, I remember doing this, like finding the last cheap available supplies of sulfadimethox for treating basic coccidia. And then we had like a 5-year supply. And when that finally ran out, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And
right.
But I understand why it's that way. It's because veterinary school became so fucking expensive.
But also because private equity came in with ZERP and zero cost of money and bought them all up so they could raise prices. And you think that went back to the veterinarians as salaries?
Of course not.
Oh, hell no. Of course not. That's feeding private equity's pockets, right? And so now the veterinarians have to work for private equity companies.
Yes,
you think you go to be a veterinarian, that's what you want to end up? You want to work for a private equity company? No, you want to hang your own shingle. You want to help animals and the people attached to them. Right. And so you don't even get to do that. So it's So when I heard this story from our family friend, like it just set me parabolic ballistic in terms of like I literally sat there and cried one night of like,
sure,
this poor girl has no idea. Like, she's going to be saddled with debt that you can never get rid of, right? So that's forever, ever debt attached to you. No bankruptcy. Sorry, I fucked up. Nope, that doesn't exist. Can't do that. Federal government made sure of that as a handout
Thank
to
you,
the
Hillary
bankers.
Clinton. Thank you, Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. Thank you, bankers. Right. And then you go, so they've screwed the students on the one hand, and now on the other hand, you've let private equity buy up all those businesses. So now you're not going to work for who you think you want to work for. Right. You're never going to be able to save enough to own your own shingle. And it just made me sad and pissed off as hell. So it got me fired enough up that I went and did the research, found out and wrote a book. And here's the other thing. You talked earlier that you could have gone to, a fancy Ivy League school, right? There's a great book called, sitting here on my shelf, called Pedigree by Laura Rivera. It's a few years old, but it's how elite students get elite jobs, right? So this is all of the people who basically weren't rich beforehand, got into the, elite Ivy League schools, right? Who almost all of wanted to go back and help their community in some way, right? But ended up in so much debt that they go, no, now all of a sudden the job I didn't want as a freshman, I want as a senior, because they let all these legal firms on campus to recruit everybody all day, every day, right? So you're either going to be a lawyer or a banker or a private equity person, right? And then you're going to go screw the exact community.
or you're going to be recruited by, or you're going to be recruited by the government into the intelligence
service.
Right.
The
other thing that these things do.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but she talks about in here, like, that's a fallacy too for most of the poor people who actually try and get in. She's like, you can't get in because they don't give a shit what your college grades were, right? Their questions are like, what sports did you play in high school?
Right.
Oh, you weren't on a polo team? You don't have a horse? Right. Like crazy shit like that, where you're like, who could ever know this thing? Like, this is where it is. So the whole, she wouldn't give the conclusion of, what it really was, but she did the research and showed all the data. And when you start reading books like this, you just go, oh my goodness, like this whole system is, set up. And then you read about, how Jared Kushner get into Yale. They talked to his high school, counselor, and he's like, was not a good student. Oh, but his dad gave $8 million over a 10-year period. Meanwhile, you got these other parents who are all pleading out because they bribed some college coach to get their kid into the school they wanted to go to. And you go, where's the victim?
Disaster. When I say I could have gone to an Ivy League school, I could have gone to Princeton simply because my parents worked at the local psychiatric hospital, the owner of whom was an alumni at Princeton and was on the board and could easily have just gotten me in there. My grades weren't in there.
Yeah.
My extracurricular activities or anything else wasn't going to get me in there. And if I had gone there, you don't think I would have been recruited by the CIA?
Probably. And that's what she's saying. Oh, you want all these jobs? It's everybody who knows everybody, right? Well, how are you going to know that if you're like some poor kid who happens to be born brilliant and you're like, okay, now I can get into Harvard or Stanford or Princeton or whatever. And you get in and you go there and you think, oh, now it's a meritocracy. It is not a meritocracy, right? It is still who old boys club, right?
So, I think about, what I did and my parents, the only discipline they really, enforced on me is that, look, we're not going to pay for a music degree, which is what I would have preferred, or something along those lines. And so, I had to pick something. I had to pick something my parents would pay for. The only class in high school I actually liked, to be honest with you, was chemistry. And that's why I have a chemistry degree. And that's why I wound up 25 years as a bench and research chemist. But I took all of my electives over in the English department. It took so long to get freaking finished because I goddamn did not want to take third semester calculus and integrate over non-Euclidean space, like the three-dimensional non-Euclidean space. I was like, I really don't want to do this. Had it not been for the one professor in the department who taught quantum mechanics and physical chemistry without using calculus, but by using an alternate method of mathematics, I wouldn't have graduated. I can tell you that right now because there's no way I would have done the work. Because I hit that limit, or I hit my limit in math that I didn't want to learn anymore. That was it. And so I got through it. I graduated in 5.5 years, and I practically had 2 degrees because I spent so much time in the English department that I had almost everything I needed for both degrees. I never went back and picked up the English degree because I don't really give a shit. But
because what's an extra degree mean?
Well, yeah. What did I need?
It's a diploma on the wall, but 5 years later, no one gets
what? That I know how to write? Like, no, I did that by going out into the world and writing 40 hours a week for 7 years and 15 for the last 15 years, and that's how I did it. So
Yeah, and that's a lot of the sentiment, right? It's like you're going to learn so much after college. You're going to really figure it out. In 5 years, once you're done, no one cares what degrees you got. No one cares what they're in. And certainly no one cares what your minors were. No one cares about any of that. No one cares what your GPA is. If you graduated summa cum, no one cares, right?
No one
They
ever
give a shit
asked me for my GPA.
Right. No one ever asked me for my GPA.
They had asked, I've been like, oh my God, you graduated with a 2.6. I'm like, yeah, I graduated with 2.6.
Right.
Hell, I almost failed out at one point. I was playing, my wife and my roommates and I were playing the classic board game Dune so much, I literally almost failed out of school. I still have, it's funny, I still have dreams every once in a while of not going to class. I still have these dreams of like not like, oh my God, I still do this on a regular basis. Like the one recurring dream I have on a regular basis is like, I wake up and I'm like, holy shit, like I haven't been to class in 4 months. And I got to take a test and I'm like, dude, you
didn't have a hard enough job then.
Like, what's that?
You didn't have a hard enough job while you were in college. Like during the summer, I would work on farms.
Right.
And the farmer down the street, I mean, that guy was sunrise to sunset. He worked his ass off. Yes, and we would start at, early in the morning. By midday, it was hot. I mean, never slept so well in my life, right? Head hit the pillow, you were out. That was motivation to go to class. Every morning I woke up and I was like, I don't want to go to class. And I was like, I do not want to be that old farmer. So I'm going to class. So I do not end up the old farmer.
What's really funny is that after college was over, like we got done and, so I bummed around for a while and, worked in various environmental labs around town and really got my chops together on, I was very good at what I did without a doubt. And data quality, all of it. And then we just decided, at one point we're like, yeah, this whole thing's going to fucking fall apart. And we needed to build a house. And so we went out in the Florida summer and built a house. So I was that guy 3 days a week, morning, sun up to sundown, 3 days a week for 9 months, building a house in Florida. We were literally roofing a house in like May in the hottest part of Florida, which is where I live. Where I live in Florida is inhospitable to humans.
Right now,
without a doubt. It's funny. I've told this story before, but my friend and partner at Gold Goats and Guns, Dexter White, he's like, dude, I've been all over the world. I've been to the jungles of Malaysia. I've been everywhere. And I'm like, because I've said to him a couple of times, I'm like, dude, why don't you come? Like, you can come up here and we can be near each other and we can be friends if you're lonely. He's like, fuck you. Like, I've been all over the world. You live in the hottest place in the world ever.
I'll go see you in January. You have a good January.
Yeah. If you're willing to put a winter cabin on your out in your field, yeah, maybe I'll come up for a couple of months. But no, it's terrible. Honestly, like Columbia, Union, Gilchrist County, it's awful. And that's also good because that means there's no humans.
Right. There's that. Yeah, there is that.
So I don't know.
You find what you're looking for.
Yeah, the story about it is, I think the part of the reason why when Tom said to me, hey, you should talk to David, you guys will have a great time, which so far we're doing great. I'm having an absolute blast. One of the things that was obvious to me was that I think we're at a paradigm shift in terms of our perspective on what is going to be and what isn't going to be important and what is and is not valuable to kids. And I can tell you that I can see it in my daughter, and we've reached this point where I think and I want you to kind of fill in on, go with me on this one. I think we've reached this point where everybody's going, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, this is not, the return on investment here doesn't work. And now what am I going to do?
I think there's two pieces of that. So the money no longer pencils, right? So if you if you step back and you go, why college, right? Why am I going there? So you can go education. Okay, fine. Right. But you can get educated at the library, right? That's free. Yes. That's like the Goodwill Hunting article. Like, you're just reciting all the shit from the other guy. You could have done that for $1.50 in late fees from your local library, right?
Dude, YouTube. Even if you just you pay for the YouTube Plus account for even $70 a month, cheaper.
Right. YouTube Masterclass. Like, there's tons of places to go learn now. The learning opportunities are way greater. Mm-hmm. So you have that. Then you have the cost structure is really the in cost structure answer is, I'm going to go to college and therefore in my life I'm going to earn X amount more because I went to college and got these degrees. That's the simple math, right? That's the easy math of like A minus B. So Pew used to view that at like, about 600 grand, right? And so the reality of when you look at the college cost is you go, how much of my future earnings am I willing to give up for this cost of college? And now all of a sudden it's been like more and more and more and more. And so when it's 20%, you go, okay, well, 20% sounds reasonable. When it's 40, you go, when it's 50 or more, you start going, well, why bother?
Ooh, right.
And then if you're interested in trades or physical manual labor at all, you could go build houses and do drywall and make 100 grand a year, right?
Yep.
And I could teach you how to do drywall in a week, and you can learn how to you could be a drywall master in 2 years, right? Like master, like, so there's tons of things. And then once you have that sorted, you could go learn all the carpentry stuff. And I've learned a lot of carpentry stuff just watching other carpenters work, like people I've hired to work on my house and be like, oh, that's interesting how they put that together. I didn't think about that way. And you can just pick stuff up, and YouTube's a huge resource. So you have value proposition, which is A, right? Then you've got B, what are you getting for that value now? And there's no doubt from anybody at this point that the value of the degree and the student that you get out of college today, that is not the same as it was 20 years ago, right? The rigor is down, right? Because the colleges have this, we'll call it dual mandate, right? Which is keep asses in seats, right? So very few students get kicked out for anything. It is, we need the tuition money because they're all expanding their campuses. I don't know how the campuses are where you're at in Florida, but the ones in Colorado just continue to accumulate more and more and more and more buildings. Like every single
I mean, the building in and around the University of Florida is crazy. We are inundated with money here in Florida. We are an anomaly because of how much the state's finances have changed over the last 10, 15, even 20 years. It's quite impressive. But one of the things I wanted to say about this is that, if you're any kind of reasonable free market economist, you understand that the free market grinds out all arbitrage, including the profit margin of the college degree.
It should.
Because it should. Everybody's going to come in to try and find a way to pull a piece of that off. But the government's going to come in. This one's going to come in. That one's going to come in. You brought up private equity taking over veterinaries. Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in every other field. Like it used to be a good value prop because it was, there was an arbitrage play because there was a dearth of people into this. Because not everybody was going, and then we subsidized it through Pell Grants and all this other stuff. And of course, as you subsidize things, you get more of it, and so. And these are all part of the process.
Right. And you don't have free market price discovery, right? Because you don't. So if we had free market price discovery, right, there'd be tons of money for loans for nurses and all the other things that we need. And they would stop shoving up money to all the people and getting all these degrees that we don't need.
Exactly.
But that's not what happens. Instead, it's money for all.
No.
Right. And the government's got 100% monopoly on that now because part of what they did under Obama was we're not going to back all of the private loans anymore. Basically it was the government was the guarantor, right? And they just said, we're going to stop being the guarantor and instead we're going to be the issuer. And so now they have
Obama's a commie, so this is nothing new. Like this is how you publicly take over. I mean, Obama's whole race on Detra, and it's happening under Biden as well because it's just Obama's third term. It's just that this is just the public. We're just removing it's just the public formation of capital at every level, including human capital. So nothing new.
And then you've also now you've enslaved them all. I mean, everyone wants to talk about, we need more equality. Well, so you've enslaved the students currently in the student loan debt problem, right? And then you effectively go, well, you know what the answer to that is? We're going to forgive them all, which is effectively enslaving the rest of us to pay off their debts.
Well, it's even, but this is the insidious part about all of that, David. If you really stop to think about it, because we go back to what you talked about earlier with the Clintons making, getting lobbying through Bob Rubin and everybody else to get the student loan debt not dischargeable under bankruptcy. So I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again, and I'll tell it to you now because it's a great one. And it's not that this woman that I'm about to talk about is unique. As a matter of fact, she's kind of normal, which is okay. So, she spent, I don't know, 40 grand on her master's degree or so after, her, in chemistry. And this is the woman who's an organic chemist. Okay. Like this is not, and this is the woman who went and worked in industry, but then she got pregnant. She has like 40,000 over the course of both of her degrees. She maybe took out $40,000 worth of debt. So when I come to meet her later on, as our daughters are growing up together, and she's part of the parenting group that we're part of, because doing a little bit of homeschooling and everything else with my daughter early on, we just got talking about this, and they're like drowning in her student loan debt, and she's like, Tom, do you have any idea what I currently owe? Well, because her husband didn't really make great money, and she was the primary breadwinner. When she got pregnant, that went away. And then she had to go on basically interest only, or a minimum payment, but she was still racking up interest and penalties on all of her debt. So she was making payments every month. But and by the time she and I were talking about this, when, our kids are like 8, she asked me, so I've been paying on this debt for this long. Guess how much I owe now? I'm like, how much? She's like, I'm like 28 grand. She's like, no, 128 grand.
Mm-hmm. And that's not an atypical story, Tom.
No, I know this is not atypical. And worse than that, once she reaches the 20-year limit, I mean, she can pay on this thing for 20 years. Then at the end of 20 years, the debt will go away, but whatever she owes will be added that year to their adjusted gross income on that year's taxes.
And
they will have to pay taxes on that entire lump sum. And if they can't pay the $60,000 or $75,000 in taxes, then that's going to start accruing taxes and penalty, interest and penalties as well. It is literal tax slavery.
I agree.
Literal tax slavery. I'm like, so to be honest with you, everybody, if Biden was actually talking about getting rid of people like that and finally forgiving them that debt, I would have no problem with it, because these people have already paid their original loan back 2-3 times over.
Yeah, there's solutions for that, but you can't go, let's deal with the debt problem and do the debt forgiveness until you deal with the source problem of
I agree.
Stop giving everybody loans and go to free market on that side. And as soon as you go free market on that side, as soon as you go free market on the front side, then we can deal with the back side, right? Then we can go, okay, here's all the people with the student loan debt. And there's an easy solution for that, right? There's easy solutions. It's just going, well, how about, wait a minute, the Federal Reserve is willing to buy government bonds at 0.25% coupons for infinite amounts of time, but we're going to charge students 7%.
Exactly.
If that's not a fuck you to students, what is?
No, exactly.
So just go 0%, 0% on all the student loans. Pay your principal. If you've paid your principal, you're done.
Yeah.
Just pay your principal back.
So I got news for you. This is the funny part about this. We're talking about this in terms of student debt. I'm going to widen the conversation, because I've made this exact same argument when it comes to sovereign debt. With Greece, how did they restructure Greece's debt in 2015? What they tried to do to Iceland when Iceland in 2008, when Iceland told the Northern Rock to go fuck themselves. It's the same thing. They restructure the debt and they go, well, your structural, we've restructured the debt. The payments are easy now. You can make them. Yeah, but you're asking me to make payments of 8% of freaking GDP for the next 40 years for $40 billion. So what? So we're just gonna literally steal every dollar or every euro in this case out of the Greek economy for the next 40 years because you owe us because you owe the Germans $40 billion. How about you go fuck yourself and we call it even? In every way, manner, shape, and form. By the time Greece is done, they're going to pay $350 billion or $400 billion on an original $40 billion debt. It's just stupid. It's usury, and yet
it's 100% usury, and that's what they're trying to do. And then you go, there's layers,
and these people, and they always play. What bothers me more than anything else is that goddamn conservatives always play the morality card on this. They always turn around and say, well, you got to pay your debts back. Like, dude, I already paid my debt back.
Right. Yeah.
Fuck you. I already did it.
Yeah, you can stop charging egregious interest.
Like you can, when you issue debt, everybody, when they want to play this game, they always only talk about the conversation from the standpoint of the debt issuer. They never, the debt, the debtor. Like they're the irresponsible one. Well, I got news for you. There's the other side of the contract where the guy who issued the debt, knowing full well that the person couldn't pay it back, it's called a contract of adhesion, and they don't fucking pay. It goes against complete contract law. It's a one-sided contract.
Do you think that applies to 18-year-olds, Tom?
Of course not.
I know
that. Hell, if it doesn't apply to countries, why the fuck would it apply to an 18-year-old?
Right. We now have, pretty concrete scientific evidence. Your brain doesn't finish developing until you're 25, but we're going to give 18-year-olds the most amount of, not debt, Tom, aid. Aid.
Yeah,
it's aid that they can take on. Right. So that they end up trapped for forever. And then if you look at it from the, put on your tinfoil hat just a little bit, just one piece of tinfoil, right?
Dude,
and you go,
I only use Reynolds heavy duty. Like, come on. Like, I only go for the best stuff.
Reynolds right, but you only need little layers for this stuff, right? Like this is easy stuff. Layers. So you just go, okay, well, now they want you as the political pawn, right? Because then they're buying your vote versus they're saying they're going to forgive some of your debt.
Of course.
Right. So vote for us, not because we're the better, but because we got you into a shitty situation and we're the ones that are going to bail you out of it.
That's right. So it's very typical. As Harry Brown used to say all the time when he was running as a libertarian 25 years ago, God's rest his soul. Government is the agency that comes in, they break your legs, and then they hand you a crutch and say, see, without me, you couldn't even walk.
Yeah, that's funny. I use a parable of like prior to, post-COVID, you can't tell what the default rates are or anything because it's a disaster. Pre-COVID, it was 1 million kids a year defaulting on their student loans. And I was like, okay, let me ask you this. If we had 1 million kids a year walking into an airport and their legs just broke in half, are we just hiring more doctors in the airport, or are we going to figure out why the hell that's happening?
Right.
Like you're giving loans to people who are never going to be able to pay them back because you're giving them to them. And then, there's the worst part of the families that the student is, there's a lot of families where they're still trying to get that first college kid through college, right? Yeah. And they will pay anything because they just want that to happen. But there's a lot of kids under that one.
That looks like.
There's a lot of kids. My dad was the first in his family, right? So you're trying to get the first through, and you just go, we will kind of pay whatever it takes. And you hear that a lot from parents. We're just trying to get them through. And next thing they know, they turn around and they owe $100,000, and they've got the Parent Plus loan stacked on top, where now mom and dad or grandma and grandpa are attached, right? Social Security is getting garnished, for a kid who just got a degree in something where he may or may not make more money. And once you get to a certain number, you're not going to make. It's not the value proposition just turns backwards, and there's nobody there to pull the credit line, right? There's nobody there to go, the sunk cost is too much. We're not going to give you more, right? And in fact, then they do what you just said. They go, oh, not only have you more, I'm going to have to make that student loan payment. You know what I should do instead? I'll go get an advanced degree.
Yep.
Then I don't have to pay.
Right. Then I don't have to pay off.
Then I get a deferral until I get that advanced degree.
I saw that back in the 90s, man. Right. Like I had friends who could not, then who were like, I don't know what else to do. I can't get a job. Well, I might as well go back to graduate school. I'm like,
well, that's why
you could go lay pipe. We're 38 minutes in and I haven't invoked the Mike Rowe yet.
Yeah, but that's why in 08 the government took over all the loans because they needed another piece to go. We need to get unemployment down.
Yes.
So what better way to do that to take all these unemployed people, guarantee them loans, and shove them off into colleges for, again, degree. And that's, I think, when it started blowing out. That's when all of a sudden there's a shit ton of people getting a lot of degrees they don't necessarily need or want right now, and a lot of debt attached to that. And once they took over the whole thing, it's just gone downhill, right? And
it's just
we're 15 years into this. And the worst part, again, is they're charging them real interest rates while they themselves will not pay them. Right? Everyone's like, oh, everyone says right now the Fed has to cut so that the government can afford its interest payment. Right. So when it comes to the federal government, action must be taken. We must do this. When it comes to all of our own friends and family and students, go fuck yourself.
No, seriously, it's just communism. They hate the bourgeoisie. They hate the middle class. And they want to destroy them. It's all it is. It's not hard. It's not a conspiracy. It's who they are. Judge them by what they do, not by what they say.
Exactly.
Fuck a whole lot of them. I do this, and I do it on purpose to just reduce all of it, every goddamn bit of it. It's just communism. It doesn't matter if it's corporatism or it's this ism or it's
and it's a caste.
At the end of the day, you're talking about rolling up the formation of capital into the government as opposed to the private financial markets.
100%.
That's it.
100%. And then you have the other part of that where we're going to make the cost so expensive to go. If you're going to any of even a Vanderbilt at this point, it's going to cost you $100,000 a year. By the time you get done with tuition and room and board and the whole thing,
Sure.
you're $100,000 a year. Okay, so this is a who can afford it caste system.
Yes.
Those families that have the money that can afford, and make no mistake, this is what most people don't really think about, right? Is the families that can afford that, they've been paying that all the way along, right? They've been paying $15,000 to $30,000 a year for their kids to go to private school since they were 4. Right. So another $100,000 a year while they go to college, they don't care. Right. So if $2 million for your kid's education is not a number that affects your family, that's the caste that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else is below that. And we're going to trap them all. And everybody else that above that gets to stay the ruling class.
Or if you're smart, you avoid the trap by taking the sweat pledge.
Yes.
Working for a few years.
Yes.
Whatever job's available to you, you do it and you move on.
You see the system and you hustle. And that's kind of at the end of the day, what I was really trying to get across here is like, there's ways to do this because there's stuff you need a degree for, right? You need, if you want to be a nurse, you need to go to college and get a degree, right? You need to stay away from the nonsense. You want to be an accountant? We need CPAs. We need shit tons of them, right?
We need engineers. We need
engineers in droves, right? We need people that can build things, right? We need a lot of these degrees.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. Like I go back to something that I remember reading an interview with Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, a few years ago, and he said, why are we in China? He's like, to manufacture it, to assemble everything. He's like, because when I put out the call for a process engineer in China, I get enough people and applicants to fill a small stadium. When I do that in the United States, I get a Zoom call.
Oh yeah,
effectively. I get a handful of people. It's like I have my choice of 30,000 applicants in China. I've got my choice of 6 here in the United States, and that is a reflection of our value system. It's a reflection of where we chose to put our capital. And then, and this is not to say that it's terminal. It's not terminal. Certainly,
it's not terminal. We can decide to change it.
Of course, we can decide to change it at a moment's notice. All we have to do is stop spending God knows how many trillions of dollars a year on these fucking NGOs who are going around destabilizing governments and destabilizing the world, and spend it on ourselves. It's not that difficult.
Well, we could do it in the college system if we just decided, hey, the federal money's out, right? Private money is going to go, well, where do we need the people? The private money is going to tell you exactly the degrees that we are going to be allowed to go to college for, because that's who will loan you the money. You want to go to, I hear from all the metals and mining companies, right? I listen to that stuff because I have investments in that space, right? What are they short of? People.
Yep.
People that, Colorado School of Mines, you graduate from there, you have a job.
That's right.
Unless you don't want a job, but you are going to get a job.
We need geologists.
We need all these people to do real things. They want a green revolution. They want to dig up
photographers. We need all of that stuff.
You got to dig up all the things. Like the stuff doesn't make itself. We need to recreate. And this country has gotten so far away from making anything here. And I know I manufacture stuff in America, and it's a bitch.
Yeah.
It is so hard to do. The number of machine shops you have available to you, sourcing raw materials. We still have to buy a bunch of shit from overseas. Like, no one's making motors in America. You buy Japanese ones. You want cheap ones, you buy Chinese. But if you want motors that work, you buy Japanese. No one makes motors in America, realistically, So
and I've been screaming for years, like, you want to rebuild. You got money. You got invested got investable capital. Like, why are you only looking at the stock market? Why are you only looking at the bond market? Why are you only looking at muni bonds or this or that or anything else? You got a tire repair shop in town that needs some capital to expand their business because whatever. You need something. Like, there are small businesses in town, in your hometowns, that are desperate for, we need meat processing facilities.
Yep.
We need, I can go down the list of, I live in rural North Florida, which is basically cattle country. And I can tell you that you want to be a small farmer that has a small herd of cows. Getting your animals processed is a real struggle.
Yeah, because they've consolidated
because you got to go to the private manufacturer. You got to go to the private companies to get it done. And there aren't a lot of them out there. And who's not USDA certified and who is and who isn't and all this rotten nonsense. And at the end of the day, if you want to, it's a real fundamental problem. And there are real barriers to entry to these things, to getting these things off the ground. And I've had many conversations over the last few years with entrepreneurs and older gentlemen who are investors and business developers and whatnot, and they're all saying the same thing. Like, we all keep talking about the same businesses over and over and over again. They're all like working on it, and they're all like, you have no idea how hard it is. So,
and as an entrepreneur, I know how hard it is,
right?
And I know how much capital that you need up front and how much you're going to burn through. And I help people with their business proposals all the time, and have a very easy equation that I go through with them when they think they're going to start something, which is to the effect of like, take your revenue and cut it in half, and take your expenses and double it, and take your timeline and multiply by pi. And if you still have a business, then we can talk. Because you're going to be optimistic about your revenue, and you're going to be optimistic about how you can keep your expenses down, and none of that's real, right? And then you go, okay, now how much capital do I actually need? And oh yeah, by the way, I'm still paying off my student loan. So how did I save money?
Right.
And this was another, big reason that I decided to finish and write this is, we need more entrepreneurs. Well, you can't, again, that veterinarian, she does not want to work for private equity. The dream is not to go work for somebody else.
Right.
The dream is to hang your own shingle. Okay, well, how do you get to that dream if you're saturated in debt? You don't get to the plus if you're minus.
What you need is a silent partner willing to take 25% of your business and a 5% dividend off the.
Maybe, but they also look at you and they go, look at how much student loans you have to pay off. You're stuck. Like, you can't contribute. And what happens when you want to expand and you go, okay, I got a goat farmer down the road, but I need 2 pieces of equipment to deal with them. And you go, we can't afford to expand and buy that, because every single time we're hamstrung because we've got this inflexibility because of this debt load. Right. And debt is the sucker. I remember when, probably around 30, and people started asking me, what should I invest in? What should I get into? And I would look at them and be like, you're broke. What the fuck are you talking about?
You don't have any money.
You don't have any. You're below zero. You have credit card debt, dude. You can't worry about what to invest in.
You can't invest your way out of that problem.
No, absolutely not.
On a credit card at 13%, you're not going to beat the market at 13%.
So that's the other part that we have right now, right? Because that's exactly where it goes. So you graduate with student loan debt. Now you have to make that payment. You want to live a life that you feel you deserve. So now you're on credit cards. Yep. Now you're in the whole left hand, right hand, and all hands, yep. Right? Like, pretty soon. And you want to talk about the financial nihilism everyone bitches about.
Yep. Yeah.
I understand where it came from now. When they first started talking about that, I was like, that one's interesting. It really is. Like the concept of it. The first time I heard that one, I was like, well, like, why? What's the driving force behind that?
David, it was really funny. I assumed, and I'll be honest with you, it's funny. People listen to this podcast all the time. They know what my regular habits are. And I hang out with basically a bunch of, I'm older, so I hang out with a bunch of millennials every Wednesday and, sometimes every Saturday. Playing board games, and most of my board gaming group are younger folk. They're in their 30s, and I would assume that for a long time I just assumed that they were all like on the treadmill. Yeah. And it comes to find out that none of them are. That it's not, I'm like, they're all like, they're allergic to debt. Who doesn't have a credit card? Who doesn't have this? Who doesn't have that? Who's got 40 grand in the bank and just sitting there not knowing what to do with it? I'm like, oh my God, it's not 0% anymore. There's T-bills at 5. You can go get a 7-month. You can get 5.2% on 7-month money. Please, for the love of God. And they finally, because they know what I do for a living. Like, what should I do? I'm like, you should put the money in your local bank and the CD and help patch the hole in their balance sheet at 5.2% if you don't know what else to do with the damn thing. Like, don't be sitting there at 0%. Like, do something with the money at the very least. Allow it to allow your local regional banks. I would say to people, if you don't know what to do, put your money in your regional banks. So let them do their job. But they're stuck right now because the Fed had to raise interest rates so quickly to liquidate all this malinvestment that is endemic around the world because of what they did during the ZERP years and after COVID, that the Fed has to stay at 5.5%. They have to burn off trillions of dollars of shitty capital and shitty bad ideas. So your local banks are all struggling. If they
Yep.
weren't struggling, they'd be offering you 4.5% on passbook savings. They're not. They're offering you 0.5% or 0.25%. It's telling you that they still have massive holes in their balance sheet, but they're willing to give you for example, a 7-month or 9-month CD special for 5% or whatever, because they're just looking at the yield curve, and they're willing to give you that, knowing full well that they can put that in the money markets, pull 25 or 30 basis points for themselves, and start repairing the balance sheets. And you can help them do that if you're sitting on a shit pile of money.
Right.
But they don't know. None of them know what to do. But I'm telling you, what's really funny is they know not to get into debt, but they don't even understand the basics of like that level of basic finance. Like you can go back. You're allowed to go back to passbook savings now. Obama's not, like it's not yelling at the Fed anymore. It's Powell, and he's a different guy. And when I explain that to them like this, I will hold your hand. I'll take you down to the bank. I'll help you do it. Please. It's offensive. They have more money in the bank than I do. Like, it's
what
crazy.
The painful part of that is? You go down to your local community credit union to buy a CD with them, you have to fill in an application. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm giving you the money. You fill out my application. Why am I filling out paperwork for you? Like, how come I can jump on Schwab and buy a CD from 19 banks in the country that are medium sized with 2 clicks? And meanwhile, I got to come down my own credit union and fill out paperwork. Like, how about you fill it all out for me?
What's really funny is I didn't have that problem. And I keep talking about my personal credit union that I've been using for 30 years. And like, they flashed it up on the billboard out front. I'm like, dude, I've got some money this month. Okay, let's go in. $1,000 minimum. I like walked up to the teller and I said, I want to move, X amount of money into it. I'll take the 7-month CD special. I'm like, what do I have to do? He's like, sign there, which is basically the electronic signature. That was it. I was like, boom. And it was
all my credit union, Tom.
It was like,
sort them out.
Oh, dude, it was like, it was so fast. I was like, I'm expecting till I have to go into the back room and ask. No, he's like, yeah, the teller just took care of it. Like
paperwork. Too much paperwork.
Not even any paperwork. It was just done.
That's
like,
awesome.
They were so happy somebody took them up on the freaking money. Like, absolutely. We'll do. Hey, how about we do this again next month?
I wish my credit union was that easy. I give them more business. They make it painful to do business. I'm like, come on, I'm loaning you money. Like when I borrow money, I know you got to fill out all the forms, but when it's the other way around, it should be as simple as possible. It's fun.
Yeah, it was. I was quite pleased with that, and but at this point, but it's funny. Their balance sheets are in tough shape. The regional banks are going to be in trouble, and we know that. But this is part of what we can do to educate the people is like with the very basics here. It's like what to do with if first things first. If you're paying on your debt,
you got to get out of debt.
Investing. You're not.
Well, the first things first, Tom. You got to stay out of debt.
Well, yeah, there's that. But if you have debt,
once you're in debt,
then you're buying, but only buy debt that you can, that you can service, and that is worth it to you for a particular thing. And and again, look, people have, you have to have a car. You live in America. You got to have a car. You got to have stuff. But you can also just drive a junker, and you can save some money and buy a junker, or pay cash, or do whatever you have to do. But the one thing you don't have to do is you don't have to spend $100,000 on taking classes about and learning stuff that everybody else is going to learn. And what I've said to my daughter, just to go right back to the beginning, go take us back to the education thing. When I told her, I said, I don't have a problem with you wanting to go take classes because, if you want to spend a little bit of money to be in a situation where you get to be with other people, and it's so different than my wife having a membership at the local pottery studio where she gets to hang out, she gets instruction, she's got people around her, she's got all these other potters to learn off of and everything else, and test out her ideas that she watches on YouTube and all this stuff. Well, it's the same thing. If my daughter wants to take some classes to get not just formal instruction, but to have that collegiate, to have that thing where you're basically buying colleagues. Fine. If that's how you have to do it in order to find some people, learn how to do this stuff, make some connections, fine.
Isn't that what we all do? Isn't that what people are doing on your channel? Isn't that why we all go to investment conferences and everything else, so we can keep learning and get other people's ideas and have other people to bounce stuff off of, and then talk about our personal situation and how we might benefit that, right? Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. Our job, is to try and help educate everybody else, right? Yes. And to me, this is why this was like, this starts with, do not burn a ton of money on college, because at the end of the day, that value proposition has changed. And for the parents, it's such a different paradigm because of that experience part that everyone went through. And I've seen people I saw a lot of people deal with this because I think we've had this emperor's, clothes moment in higher education, especially with the Harvard and Penn and MIT professors before Congress who just basically said, well, we're for free speech, except for when it's free speech, and just talked out of both sides of their mouth and went, oh, shit. And then what's really funny about that is everyone thinks Claudine Gay got fired. Like, she got fired as president, but she's still teaching there, making $1 million a year. She didn't get fired.
Right? She's a good lieutenant. Trust
right.
Me. Yeah, exactly. So and it really is very, very it really is very important that, there are subject matter experts everywhere.
Yes.
You can find yourself, like, I remember like thinking to myself, why am I taking all these, workshops, poetry workshops when I was in college, spending, there was $60 a credit, $100, $200 a piece plus my time. Okay, fine. And by that point, I was mostly paying for my own college. I was working when I could, and I was living off my money, and my parents weren't really, at that point in the degree cycle, I was paying for it, which is fine. And my parents paid for what they could, and that was reasonable. I could have found writers groups for free in town. There were plenty of writers groups in town I could have, wheedled my way into, and I just didn't know any better. And it was an easy way to make sure that I got all of my electives that I had to take in order to qualify for the degree. And then once I hit that limit, I just stopped taking, all I did was take the requisite number of classes necessary to get through. And then I basically, the last year and a half, I think if I took more than 6 credit, basically 2 classes a semester, you're out of your mind. I didn't. I just slowly but surely just limped towards the end until I finished.
And again, I'll tell anyone at this point, just finish as fast as possible. When I talk to kids and they're telling me about all the minors that they have, I go, stop. You don't need all those minors. Like, you need your credit hours, and you really need to know how many credit hours you need for what you're trying to do.
That's
like, you want to be a CPA. Guess what? You want to sit for the CPA exam? You need 150 credit hours just to take the exam. That's a master's degree. Do you know that? And now, by the way, out of college, you're going to get paid jack shit.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have a lower paying job. When I graduated from college, my roommate was a bartender. He made way more money than me. I was so pissed off. I was like, what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting. I say that to you, right? My daughter's small little private school, high school that the really integrated school, the K through 12 school that she graduated from. The graduating class this year was 2 kids, her and then another girl. Okay. That's literally
awesome.
Right.
Yeah, that's homeschooling.
But they've done, it was really glorified homeschooling. Thankfully, we have a voucher system.
Yeah, it's community homeschool, which is great.
We were able that it was effectively paid for. But they did multiple rounds of, okay, we're doing life skills. So pick a thing, you're all here's your budget, here's what you're going to do, make some decisions about who you are and what you're working for and everything else. And it was funny. They all got the object lesson of, like, my daughter picked, like, I don't know, like news, like magazine editor or something like that. And somebody else picked this and that, and, who wanted to be a dentist, who wanted to do all those other things. And they're all like crammed into 5 to an apartment in a 2-bedroom apartment in order to try and fictitiously pay the rent and everything else. And they're all starving to death. And the one guy said, I'm going into the military. And they're like, why would you do that? And then he kind of comes out after 5 years and he's got all of his money, everything paid for, good to go. Like, and
that's a great option. And I say that except for with the one caveat, right? Which is where they might send you they might send you to run into bullets.
That's right. And that's the problem. So
when I was looking at that in the 90s, I mean, that's Iraq war stuff. And I was like, you got to be out of your mind. There is no way I'm joining the military so they can ship me over to get shot at in some country that I have no clue why we're there. And no one can explain to me why we're there. Like, not doing it. And then you start reading the real history stuff. And, and of course, I had a bunch of teachers that were Vietnam vets that were, half mental and crazy from their PTSD from Vietnam.
Sure.
When all of a sudden you're in gym class and some guy's socks aren't up all the way and the teacher just blows his gasket and screams at the kid like he just murdered somebody. Right. Like, what is going on with this teacher? And they're like, he's got a little PTSD from Vietnam. So, just keep.
We're doing our best.
Sorry, keep it moving. Yeah, exactly.
We're doing our best.
We're doing our best. And they would then all of them would tell us, don't you listen to anything those sons of bitches tell you about war. They're all liars and they're cheaters, and they sent us over there to just die for them. So that really kind of had my mentality, and it was honest.
The basic idea is like what she learned and what she actually realized is that, her parents saying, oh, by the way, being a welder isn't so bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Nothing wrong with it. Like,
nothing wrong with earning a living.
And you can do it. Like other, I've seen, like it's possible. And so, you don't have to do it forever. It's one of the things that I literally had Tom Bodrovics on the podcast as a guest because I loved his story.
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Right. Yeah. And when I had, because I met, I had met Tom for the first time up in Edmonton a little over a year ago. He came up to an event and that I was going to be at, and he's like, drove up from Calgary to meet me. It was like fucking floored, right? But then he started talking about his story. I'm like, oh, we're putting this one on the podcast because you don't have to do jobs like that forever and a day. You do that for 3 to 5 years, and you make enough money that now you have a nice little nest egg. You have you've started your life with a positive balance sheet. Now you can go out and you have some margin for error to figure out what it is that you actually want to do. And if you're a young woman, you can go find yourself a halfway decent man and you can start a freaking family.
Yeah. And you can play entrepreneur because you could save a few dollars and figure out what you want to do and be your own boss.
Right. And so, like there's no reason why you have to really, you have to think about all of this other rotten nonsense. Like and being the father of a daughter, so with a boy, it's easy. Like, dude, just go get yourself a freaking job. Like, go out, dig ditches, and learn a trade, do the thing, be strong, work hard, be strong, go find yourself a good woman, and to try to get the daughter in this world with the horrible programming of, being a mom is not the is not the highest, but not your highest achievement in this world. I mean, that's what they're being told. Not that I don't know that my daughter, I haven't. She doesn't really want to have this conversation. It's always a very uncomfortable conversation just because of who she is and what she is. And this is not to say that she hasn't listened. She's just, she's not there yet. She's literally just becoming an adult. She doesn't want to have this conversation just yet. And she's very smart. What a shock. And, she's got a lot of things that she would like to do, but she also realizes that things are, very difficult. And she's walking into this, terrible environment. And she's like, okay, I'm like, what do you do? Oh, I'm like, if you want my honest opinion, find a nice neurotypical boy and let him be the one who says, hey, my goal in life is to take care of you and give you a basketball team. Like, that's your goal. I need you to realize that that's what your goal needs to be.
Right.
But unfortunately, it hasn't quite completely sunken in yet. Not a shitlip or anything in any way, my daughter, but that's not the issue. But
there's about to be a female issue too in terms of college. So already we've got 60% of college graduates are now female.
Mm-hmm.
Well, women don't tend to marry down.
No, they don't.
So that creates a bit of a problem.
Yeah, it does.
And they say when it gets to 65, then the women will just stop going to college in general because there's not enough mates.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why we need to have immigration to bring over all those Chinese engineers that...
Please, let's not go there. Because,
jokes, Tom, jokes. We have to have some levity around here these days.
Oh, I know, but
people are getting shot at. We have to be able to make jokes. But
that's the thing. I think that we would be having a very, very different conversation today if Donald Trump hadn't not turned his head at the very last minute the other way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we probably would.
I don't even know that this conversation would have went off.
Yeah, I
to
think
be
that's
honest
right.
with you, because I mean, no offense, David, but I would have had, and so, but I'm glad that we are having this conversation, because what it's telling us, I think, with Trump surviving, and then with the way things are laying out, we have a far better set of odds than we did even a week ago.
Absolutely.
Of potential of coming out of this on the other side of this period of this crisis period that we're in a somewhat rational state as a society.
Yeah, and hopefully, whether it's Trump or RFK, somebody gets in the White House and starts doing something about the expansive administration state. Like all of the stuff we're talking about today, all of this issue with loans. The Department of Education should just be literally eliminated. There is zero reason for it. I mean, constitutionally, this is a states' right issue. The federal government has nothing to do with local education. All they do is get involved, tell all these kids they need to go to college, load them up with the student loan debt as aid to get them there, right? And then and indoctrinate them all along the way and then make them their slaves. Like this is a terrible, terrible, terrible system. Why not just eliminate the Department of Education, make all of the loans private again, make all the universities compete for the fewer students, and let that play out how it's supposed to, right?
Let the states deal with it. The states that have got money,
the states will deal with it.
The states where the money's flowing in because they've it's just Jeffersonian federalism.
Right.
At the end of the day, like
how it works.
If you mismanage your state and you don't have enough money to educate your children, well, guess what? They're all going to move to Florida and we're going to educate them because we've got money. You know why? Right. Because we're not freaking crazy. That's why.
Right.
Well, I mean, we are crazy, but
wasting it on other things.
We're a particular Florida kind of crazy, but it's not
crazy.
the kind of crazy that we're talking about out in California, New York, or some of the other fucking.
Yeah, we're not wasting everybody's money burning it down by having 10,000 people in California that work on homelessness. Meanwhile, homelessness keeps getting worse, but the amount spent per homeless person is enough to send all the kids to college.
That's right. Exactly. So, and then you ask yourself, okay, so how does this, and why are we not forgiving their student loan debt?
Right. Yeah. Oh no. Well,
it doesn't, there's enough. It's to say that we don't have the money is wrong. We just spend the money. We just refuse to admit the fact, this is our government we're talking about. We refuse to admit to the fact that we purposefully spend the money in the worst way imaginable to pursue a particular agenda, which is anti-American, or in fact, anti-American, the American population. We are spending the money for a globalist agenda that has zero to do with the betterment of the American people. And it's fucking offensive and it needs to end. This is not a statement of, I mean, at the end of the day, I have no love for our government. I have no love for any of these organizations at all. But at the very least, you start if the federal government is out of control, fine, get rid of the Department of Education, put it back to the states, let them figure it out. No different than the abortion issue. The government shouldn't be involved in abortion in any way, manner, shape, or form, really any more than the states should be involved in it. But hey, better that it's individually allowed the states to deal with it. And we have different policies and let the different policies play themselves out and figure out which is the best one for the individual people that live in those geographies. And if you don't like it at the state level, fine, devolve it down to the county level. You don't like it at the county level, devolve it down to the town level. That's the idea, and it should always be in our heads that way. But no, we've done the exact opposite by saying, oh no, we have to have big, huge political organizations to fight against China, to fight against the EU. Like, no, they're all going to freaking collapse into their own bigness anyway, because all this bigness is bullshit.
That's exactly how it ends up, right? The bigness doesn't work, whether it's companies, right? Boeing's a perfect example. When you end up with a monopoly, it has no competition, no need to stay sharp and make things better, no need to serve customers, because you can just tell them all to go to hell. Because it doesn't matter. What are you going to do? Not buy our planes? You're going to buy our planes. So until literally they start falling out of the sky, which they have, right? Then there's no issue. So it's the same thing we've got across the thing. Bureaucracies are made to grow, right? Yes. That's just what they do. Their internal thing. As soon as you have the first bureaucrat into any of these systems, what's their first thought? Just as a person, I don't blame them. I don't view them as evil people. Nope. That's just your first thought. Like, I need to keep my job because I need to feed my family. So I need to make sure I keep my job. And then to keep my job, I need some people below me, because if I got people below me, well, they can't get rid of me. They would have to get rid of the people below me first.
Well, and that's one way of looking at it. It's just the very simplest way to look at it is that at the end of the day, the first rule of any organization is self-perpetuation.
Right.
Just like any other species, just like anything else, that your goal, the mission statement of every organization. And, I will invoke the great Butler Schaefer, as I always do. I distrust all organizations larger than a two-handed game of poker. And it's very simple. And I, distrust them. That doesn't mean they shouldn't exist, but you always, distrust but verify and all the rest of it. And keep that in your head. And then you understand the motivations and the incentives of the people there. And then you start figuring out how to get rid of those. When they start talking their book, you just look at them and go, that's nice. You're just talking your book. I'm done listening to people talk their book. I'm not paying for
100%.
you to talk your book. You go out and stop grifting and go earn a living. Fuck off.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the state of, I think, the cycles that we go through. And we let these bureaucracies build up and they get too big, and then we finally have to get pissed off about them enough, and then we can tear them back down.
Yep.
And then, I mean, this is
No,
unfortunately the part of the cycle that we're in.
Yep.
And going through the destruction phase is never the fun part, right? Like if you think of it from the building of a building, right? You start when you break ground, everyone's out there with shovels, taking pictures, right? You build the building, you celebrate the opening, right? 50 years later, when that building comes down and you got to condemn the thing, there's nobody out there taking pictures before they blow the building up so we can build another one, right? Like the end is always like the part no one wants to be around for, no one wants to look at, everyone wants to pretend doesn't happen. I was in Vegas one time and they were demoing casinos. I had no idea they were doing this. We were literally standing on a bridge in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden behind us is boom, 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 and there's a building coming. Turn around, there's a casino coming down, and I was like, "There's no celebration over there. No one's excited. No one loves that part." But that's exactly what needs to happen so they can build the Bellagio right behind it. That's what they're going to do too. So
I'm not a huge fan of the Schumpeter's creative destruction arguments. Because for the most part, Schumpeter's a fucking Marxist, but he's not fully wrong.
He's not wrong, because eventually your house is too old to be useful, and eventually you can extend it with proper maintenance, but it still is going to have a useful life. And then at the end of that, it's got to get torn down so we can build anew. That's just part of the system. But right now, unless you build a rock house in the middle of Utah where there's no weather. If you look in places, you just get longer. Utah, that's just a longer period.
Or there are clapboard houses out in the middle of freaking Utah that are like 180 years old, that are literally like you drive by and you're like, how is that thing 180 years old? And you're like,
no humidity.
There's no weather out here.
There's no humidity.
There's no humidity. There's no this. There's no that. There's no bugs. Like this is what it is. Like I live in Florida. Everything rots.
Right.
I mean, even pressure treated lumber rots. It's impressive, right? And and you really do feel the accelerated entropy component to all life when you live here in Florida, between the humidity, the bugs, the heat, everything. Just how quickly nature will just subsume everything here, and it's really impressive. And it's a good metaphor.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is what we have all over the place, right? I mean, you see these like when they go fly over Angkor, right, with the LiDAR now, and you can see where that thing used to be, just this massive complex, and the jungle's just eating it. I'm about to go to a place. I'm about to go to a place in Peru, Chico Corral, which is below Machu Picchu, and it's a 2-day hike in, and the second day of the hike is 5,000 feet of elevation over 8 miles. And this is going to be a real trek. This is not for the faint of heart, right? But it gets 10 people a day versus
about 6 months before I even would attempt it. Right?
This is 10 people a day versus Machu Picchu's 10,000 a day, right? Because you got to do the work to get there. But was completely under jungle, right? Completely lost to, we'll call it civilization, since the Spanish took over and killed everybody, until recently. And so you can see that the earth just turns itself over, and the same happens with our systems. And right now they're building on university campuses. Meanwhile, we have a demographic decline. So explain to me how this works, Tom.
I don't.
If people are leaving your city in Florida right now, are you building apartment buildings? No.
Sad to say, that's not what's happening here in Florida. But yes, like where I am,
everyone's coming to Florida.
Everyone is coming to Florida. But if you're in San Jose, for example, you have a different problem. If you're in Chicago, you have the opposite of Gary and Getty. It's a different problem. If you're in New Jersey, New York, different problem. And
people don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, migrations are a thing, and no matter how much you try and paper over reality, people always respond to incentives.
Yep.
And
that's right.
And we've incentivized a certain type of behavior for a very long time with cheap credit and cheap money. And that's now become very expensive. And because it was always eventually going to become very expensive, because the people who took out the credit, the people who borrowed against the credit didn't get the return on investment. We did for a little while. Some of us were bribed on it, but it was always costing more than we thought it was, and we were just sending the seed capital out and getting inferior goods in return over time. And I think that when I think about, I'll ask you quickly. I don't know. You might think about this, or if you've even thought about this at all. But Trump's pick of J.D. Vance as his VP candidate is a very interesting dichotomy. If you think about this, you have Trump, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, lived the privileged life, and decided to take on the monstrous task of trying to reform this system. And now he's chosen the exact opposite. He's chosen somebody from the other side of the tracks, the guy who grew up in forgotten Southern Ohio, where my wife is from. Like, I know that area of the country. I've spent a lot of time there. I spent a summer there flat on my back, fucking broke. I know exactly what that feels like. I've been to Lucasville, Ohio. You want to go? You want to talk about going to despair? Like, you want to go to despair? Lucasville, Ohio. Take a drive through there one of these days on your way, to Cincinnati up from Louisville, and take a detour. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, that's where J.D. Vance is from, and if he's half of that guy, then Trump just immunized the entire executive branch from what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, let me start back where you were with Capital. And what I think's happened is everyone borrowed all this cheap money and no one intended to pay any of it back.
Of course.
And now that they're required to pay it back, now the cost is way too high.
Well,
right.
How about this? They promised us 2 generations worth of fucking pensions that they knew they were never going to pay, and now they want to default, and they want us to pay the fucking bill.
Oh yeah, they spent all the money, and they didn't adjust it as life expectancy went up. They didn't play with it. And the reality, Tom, is the boomers are going to have to pay the bill, because you know what? They're the only ones with any money to pay that bill. And that bill's going to be paid,
and they want me to pay that bill, and I ain't fucking paying.
Yeah, but that bill's going to be paid with human pain, because they're just going to lower the benefits. And at some point, you're going to walk into your doctor and say, I would like to have this hip replaced. And they're just going to say, sorry, we're not doing that anymore because it's too expensive.
What's going to happen. I can tell you right now that I am, David, how old are you?
47.
Okay. I'm 56. And I can tell you that from the time I was 26, I knew that I was never going to see a dime from Social Security.
Oh, I knew that from day one. Like I saw the math in college, and I went, that didn't work. That's bad math.
But understand that I knew this even before. I know your generation. You're at the tail end of my generation.
Yeah, I'm the tail end of the Xers.
You're not quite a millennial. You're not here. So
I'm an Xer, full sir.
Oh yeah. I mean, I am high Gen X. I'm like the 1968. That's the fucking peak, dude. And like February 1968, I think you can literally like mark the midpoint of Gen X when I was born. And we knew then that it was all bullshit then. I can tell you that the kids that are coming behind us, they know that it's all over. They know. And our task, and I'm going to wrap it up here in just a second, simply not because I don't want to talk to you anymore, because I think an hour and 20 minutes is about good length for a good podcast, which is the following. Is that they know that nothing's coming for them, and I don't even blame them for wanting to check out. In a certain level, I don't blame them at all, and I don't even like it's at this point I can't even I can't blame them, but they know, and they're going to do whatever they're just going to skate through it as much as they can, but they're not going to fight for these people. They're not fighting and dying in Ukraine. They ain't fighting and dying in Gaza. They ain't fighting and dying in Taiwan. It ain't happening. I tell you this right now. They're going to try this shit, and it's just not going to happen. There's going to be a whole lot of, yeah, no, that's nice. Yeah, that's not happening. And they've made this system so unfair, and they've watched their parents go broke 3 times, and all of it. I just don't, I think that is actually the best. It's both the worst and best possible outcome, because in order for you to really reform a system, that system has to fall into crisis.
That's correct.
You can't, it can't not. So,
and everything they've done to kick the can down the road has just made the situation worse, which has made it worse for them. If you're millennial or after, you're coming around and you're going, wait, they sucked out all the money. And it's easy to understand how they sucked it all out, right? They gave it to people with the assets. Well, that's the few and far between. So that's just, they sucked more and more out of the system. You make rates cheaper and cheaper for them. Meanwhile, you're not going to make it cheaper for the students. No. Private equity, you can borrow money at 0.5%, but students, you still got to pay 6. Students were still going to compound, like they're not going to get any, they've been given no free lunches in that respect. And then being told on the other side, this is what you're supposed to go do. And this is what you read a lot of articles, talk to a lot of students who have all this debt, and they go, wait a minute, I did exactly what you told me to do.
That's right.
And this is the situation I'm in. So I think that's why we have the big lack of trust, the huge lack of trust. And it's warranted. Yeah. And we're going to end up in this standoff, I guess you'd say, because I feel like that's the millennial worker today. And I tell you what I hear right now going around almost all the places. Prices are way up, right? And that sucks. But service is also way down, which like the combo of that, I talk about with my friends all the time. Like the only thing we can do is speak with our wallets. When I walk into a restaurant where the cost is up and the service is down, I just go, I'm not coming back here. I'm not doing both. I'm not paying for both. Like price is up, I get it. Service down. And then you go, why is service down? And that's what I think service is down for. It's exactly what you just said. They feel like they're paying for it. And it's fair.
And I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I can't even really blame them at a certain level.
I agree.
Because they know these jobs are like, they're asked to put a smile on their face while they work a slave's job.
Right.
Like,
while they're in debt. So they don't even get their money.
They don't even get a chance to enjoy it. It's all terrible, right? And I go and I take the 3 of us go out to dinner, and it's friggin' $100 for 2 hamburgers, some fries, and somebody got a steak, and it's $100 because by the time I'm done paying the tax and the tip and the bill and everything else, it's $70 for 3 people's food, and then $30 in tax and tip on top of that. Because
if the service is shitty,
and even if I get good service, and fine. Even if I get good service, right? And I
get good service, at least you're having a good time.
Well, I know, and I even get good service. Even when I get that, it's like at the end of the day, I'm like, I get it. I'm like, I can't even like get angry anymore if I don't even get good service, get bad service, because I'm like I wouldn't want to do the shit. Like I don't want to work for that smarmy. That smarmy asshole who's the restaurant manager, he's the boss, like the cornflower blue, the guy with the cornflower blue tie in Fight Club. I was just literally watching like clips from Fight Club before you and I got on the air, and I'm like, I don't want to be. I wouldn't want to be any of these people either. Like it's just awful. Like this
without the opportunity, without the belief of the opportunity, right? So when we were younger and like, okay, people are going to go wait tables while you get through college, so and get the next job. Like there was this belief that you could move up the system, right? Yeah. But now with home prices where they are, you're going to end up with all the student debt load. It's so stacked in front of you that I 100% get that mentality, right? I don't like it. That's what I'm saying. I don't like it being out there. I don't like it. I understand it.
But I understand it.
And this is this is exactly the point of why I wrote this. If you don't have the huge student loan debt burden, right, then you're going to keep more of what you earn. You're going to get to keep your own, right? You
literally can't afford the rent just to live, to go to your shitty job, less try and go to school. Right. And my daughter's funny, she's she has, it's like everything else. she's trying to get her first job, right? She just hasn't worked while she's been going to school. And I don't want to, I can already hear people, why the hell is she 18 and doesn't have a job yet? Because it's a different world and she's a different kid and blah, 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 blah. And she is who she is. And I'm just leaving it there. She's trying to get her first job. She's working really hard to try and get her first job. And she's like, and she keeps running into the classic conundrum. And she's running into it at 18 when I ran into it at 15 or 14. And I said to her the other day, I'm like, the classic conundrum being, you want experience, but how am I supposed to get experience if you won't give me a job to get the experience? Right? Classic catch-22. I said, I was lucky. My first job, I worked at I talked about the hospital that that I could have used that to get into Princeton with, right? That connection. And that's because it was a private psychiatric hospital in my hometown. My mom was head of nursing. My dad was retired NYPD and was in charge of the maintenance department. And guess what? My first job was official job was cutting grass for my dad, and cutting grass and taking the garbage out and doing maintenance in the maintenance department for this 200-acre, private psychiatric hospital. And then after that, that was my summer job. And then during high school, I worked in the kitchen I worked washing dishes at the kitchen, right? That's how I got my experience. That's how I got started. Those jobs they're not gone, but they're going away. And what I was saying to my daughter the other day, I said, your best bet to get a job is not to just keep putting applications into a lot of these corporate, jobs, hoping that you'll get a just go to all the small businesses. Just walk in the door and just walk in the front door and go, look, I'm 18. I need a job, 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week. I need something, anything. And just go to the florist, go to the vet's office, just go to the pizza parlor, go wherever and just get something and get started and get the process under your belt. And then from there, once you get there, you'll be fine. And, a lot of these kids are like my daughter is social anxiety, autism, stuff like that on the spectrum. This is hard for them. This is different. Right. You and I are built differently.
Yeah, we're built tough.
We're built differently. And, I had my first job when I was 12, for Christ's sake. I took my brother's paper route when I was 12 years old. I was making money when I was 12, but
I do know. I was hustling from very young age.
Yeah, my wife is the same way. She couldn't wait to get her freaking driver's license to get out of the fucking house and go get a job. And she's working at the Olive Garden, busting tables, right? So, same thing. But it's not that she's not tough. She is. She's fierce. She just doesn't have the skills. And I'm a terrible job. I'm doing this job now because I'm terrible at finding a job. I tell her all the time. I've told her again. I'm like, you have no idea how I got my first job when I got out of college. I literally called every lab in Gainesville and went, do you have need of a guy with a degree in chemistry? I had no idea how to get a job because no one taught me even how to do that.
Right.
And I didn't take advantage of any of the programs that were there within the university to get work. I didn't even know what to do. And I kind of wormed my way on my path the way I just kind of bummed through my freaking life until I said, well, no, now I have to figure out what I'm going to do. And so now I'm here doing what I do. So.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. Appreciate you having me on.
No problem. It was great fun.
Yeah, good times.
So again, tell everybody what the name of the book is, where they can buy it, and let's do the thing, man.
Yeah, sure. The plug is the book's No Second Chances. It's a family guide to the college choice and the lasting impact of debt. And it is available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. And I made this real easy for everybody in terms of the Amazon Kindle purchase. The ask is, hey, next time you buy from Uncle Jeff, delay your purchase, get your $3 credit, and buy somebody the Kindle version. It costs you basically nothing if you do it that way. Ship them over the Kindle version, and maybe, just maybe, we prevent a few of these kids from getting into terrible debt, and they become the entrepreneurs that help make our future a lot brighter.
Excellent. Sounds great, dude. Great, David. It was great meeting you. It was great taking the time out of my unbelievably stressful schedule right now to have what was a really good talk. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Great to meet you, Tom. Pleasure.
Take care. Well, that'll about wrap it up for episode 184 of the Gold Goats and Guns podcast. I want to thank David Bradshaw for taking the time out to chat with me for, a good hour and a half about a whole lot of things. And it was a really good chat. And I enjoyed meeting David and doing the thing. So, as always, you can follow my work over at my blog over at goldgoatsandguns.com. You can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. You can follow my partner, Dexter White, at Dexter K. White on Twitter as well. And, of course, you can sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns, where we publish the monthly investment newsletter as well as bi-weekly market reports and private podcasts and everything else. So, with that said, I'm out. We'll see you next time. You guys be well. You take care. We'll talk soon. You keep your stick on the ice.